So in this tutorial, we're going to look at the enhanced greenhouse effect and international variations in greenhouse gas sources and emissions. And this will be in relation to economic development, globalization, and trade. So the first thing that we can see really in the diagram on the right-hand side is the natural greenhouse effect. So here on the left-hand side, we see that greenhouse gases are trapping re-radiated heat and re-emitting it back into the atmosphere. So there's still heat escaping the atmosphere here. But if we start to look at the enhanced greenhouse effect, we can see that a lot more greenhouse gases are re-emitting this heat back into the atmosphere with less heat escaping. So the main causes of this enhanced greenhouse effect can be seen on the left-hand side with anthropogenic factors. So burning of fossil fuels through our energy systems, our industry, our transportation systems are producing carbon dioxide. And then a whole number of land use changes to do with deforestation or wetland loss is also causing emissions, either CO2 or methane. And we've got lots of different examples here of agriculture and agricultural systems which are producing methane and nitrogen oxide, both very strong greenhouse gases. So these can be seen in this photograph, quite a visual image here of anthropogenic causes, and this photograph shows the biggest sources of greenhouse gases. And it also includes some more natural processes seen here in the thawing permafrost, so sources to do with land use change, methane being released from decomposing organic material. That's possibly a future risk or a future source alongside wetland losses and things like that. So if we take a look at this graphic on sources of emissions, we can see that carbon dioxide, largely through fossil fuel and industry, produces 65% of greenhouse gases in our atmosphere. And then smaller amounts here through methane, nitrous oxide. The main sectors, the main economic sectors can be seen here on the right-hand side. So we think about economic development, well, transportation systems, industry, energy use, and electricity production are really responsible for large parts of our emissions. So when we think about trade and globalization, we're thinking about our industry and our transportation routes. But don't underestimate the importance of agriculture and forestry. So in this graphic, it shows 24% of our greenhouse gas emissions are coming through factors such as land use change and intensive agricultural systems. This graphic is really important, and it shows the dominance of Asia, and in particular China, where 29% of our carbon emissions, our greenhouse gases, are coming from China. So this really sets the context of the globalized world we live in. China, the factory of the world, a big industrial nation producing massive amounts of carbon emissions, with the United States at 16% of carbon emissions, so still a huge producer of carbon emissions. So we follow this graphic round, we see here really that we've got India first of all at 7%, and this is a large amount, but I think we're going to see this one increasing. It has this huge dependency at the moment on coal, dirty greenhouse gas energy. And then we see these big manufacturing bases coming through here, Japan, Germany, Korea, maybe some of the energy-based countries, oil exporting countries. But what we do see in this graphic is that every country here is either a HIC, high-income country, or an emerging economy. So economic development within the context of a globalized world is really, really an important factor in terms of sources of emissions. I would like to just draw your attention though and put this in context. And this graphic shows the historical causes of emissions, and it dates it from 1751 to 2017. Of course, what we see here is the overwhelming importance of the USA and the EU28 as major sources of emissions, historical emissions. We see North America in green. We see the combination here of Ukraine and Russia. Turkey attached here. So Europe being the largest producer of emissions historically, if we combine this group of nations. So whilst seeing that, I think we should also recognise the emerging economies. And total here, 29% of global cumulative emissions now coming from emerging economies, not too dissimilar from what we're seeing over here. Look, 29% here in North America. So we cannot underestimate the new sources, the emerging economies, their role in a globalized economy and their rapid economic development. And we can only see regions such as India, China continuing to grow.